And we have a very special guest to help us do it, and we need to properly get him introduced. And now, the moment you've all been waiting for. He's the number one betting expert in all of sports. The one, the only, Chaz Floating.
I don't know if you guys can even hear me because I'm struggling with my audio here.
Yeah,
we're hearing you, Chaz.
You
know what? For the last month, I think it's actually accurate. How sick is that? You know, you can talk about yourself a lot, but yeah, it's been. Even though today I took a bad one with Oregon, but I almost feel bad for the sports book. It's been such a great since Thanksgiving, guys. It's just been phenomenal. But how do you play this week? I mean, I'm listening to you guys and I'm thinking, you're sitting out there, right? I don't care who you are. I put on the helmet. I understand the concept. You got nothing to play for but yourself and your team. Yeah. It's hard to really have confidence, right, in the selections you make.
Well, this is one of the wild weeks, Chaz, which is why we had to bring you in, because what happens is you still want to keep winning money. You're going into week 18, but you really have to pick your spots, know who's motivated, pay attention to the reports leading into the week to know exactly who's even going to be playing, who wants to play, who's going to play a full game, and make your estimations on that.
I mean, what's the biggest screw up you could do in sports betting? Is probably not check the weather, right? So right. I remember one time it was a Notre Dame game. Notre Dame and Michigan, they're dead to me. But it was a Notre Dame game, and I bet the over, and it was like a hurricane game, and it was like 6-3 or something at halftime. But with fantasy, it's like your guy doesn't even play, right? That's the worst case scenario, and that's this week.
Yeah, and that's why we tell people don't play your championships in week 18. It's not worth it because you're likely picking up some Notre Dame scrub off the waiver wire. But for those of you who know,
that's what everybody I talk to, as you know, I've done fantasy with you guys. I don't do fantasy well, and I don't do contests well, but second half Chaz, figure it out, man. I'm a live action.
But what you do, Chaz, is you cash tickets well. That's why we bring you on.
In the last month, I had a game where I cashed 30 tickets in one game, 28, 26, and 24. It's been great. And it's so funny because I'm hanging out with my 30-year-old sons and their friends, and I'm just making them look like idiots. And part of it is they do stupid shit. You know, they're guys, they're young guys. They do stupid shit. And I don't do stupid shit. I just don't make mistakes. And one of the things I learned is 3 out of 4 is not bad, but if you bet a 4-teamer, it is. But if you bet a round robin, it isn't, right?
Yeah.
And then there's nothing wrong with understanding that Satan is part of what the point spread is all about. And you got to get rid of Satan in your life any way you can, and money lines do that for you. And so you say, yeah, but money lines don't make any money. Okay, so instead of 12-1, you got 3-1. But on your 12-1, you lost. But on my 3-1, I won. Hello.
For those of you who don't know, Chaz he was part of the MD's Fantasy Football Show for a really long time. And this year was a lot of changes. We made the new network. So really, really happy to be able to get him on now at this point in this.
And this is great you got me on because my attorney, who I've talked to about the age discrimination lawsuit that I'm coming up with courts, he said that as long as you talk to him before the 15th of January, it won't count.
There you go. So we're happy to have him on. He's going to help us get through some bets. So let's dive into that, shall we? So we got the Saturday matchups. We got the Cleveland Browns, Baltimore Ravens, and Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. So right now, the Ravens, they actually do have something to play for, but they don't technically have that division locked up yet. And they're playing against the Browns team who's playing DTR. So the spread is wild. It's a 17.5-point spread in favor of the Ravens. It's a 41.5 over under. Chaz, is there anything in this game standing out to you?
Well, the first thing, it's funny because you guys know how much credit I gave you in making me a better handicapper because the fantasy level drops down to players, and I never went that low. But I do data and I go to stats, and the funny part about it is the biggest thing I learned in the last 4 or 5 years is you got to just say, I want nothing to do with this game. And you got to be able to say you want nothing to do with this game. And I literally have sheets of paper. I just boom, 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 boom. So now I'm down to 7 games out of 16. So that means I looked at 16 games, but more than half of them I threw away. And there are 7 games I'm talking about. 2 of them are Saturday, because how bizarre is it that this conference or this, division comes down to the last week, and there's 2 games between the players, and they're both worth betting on.
Yeah, and even from a player prop standpoint, like, look, I'm tempted by Derrick Henry and 100 yards rushing prop. It's not that he couldn't do it against Cleveland, but I also look at this situation and say, if they're up 3 scores midway through the third quarter and the Browns can't move the ball because DTR is at quarterback, how much more will Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, and company actually play? So I'm actually staying away from props in that game as well. So you don't have anything in that game. Let's go to Cincinnati.
No. That's not what I said, young man. That's not what I said. What I said was this happens to be one of the 7. So here's what I've got. Quarter 1 Baltimore. Now you know that the second half Chaz Nomer is misleading. What I do is I separate data by quarter 1, first half, second half, and game. And I isolate trends, and then I look at why. Because the why, as you know, is everything. If you guys have people you talk to in fantasy, and it sounds great, and then you say why, and they say because my uncle says he's a good quarterback or something like that, and all of a sudden the credibility drops, But so here's what I got: quarter 1 Baltimore, and the Baltimore team total over, and I would do that for the first quarter, for the first half of the game, and recently I've been blessed. I won 3 games in the streak where the only way my wife, so Vicky, you've heard of Vicky. So Vicky's very knowledgeable of football, to where she'll scream at a coach, how the hell do you call that play in the middle of the game? How do you not love a chick like that, right? And so we're watching this game, and she goes, so what do you think? I said, well, honey, the only way I could win is if it goes overtime. I had 3 of them. I had one today. I had the team total over for Texas, and I almost feel bad for the people that had Texas and it didn't cover. I just thought it was too many points. And the only way I could win, they had 24 points, and it was horrible. And I had like 33.5 or something. And so that's the one thing I found, that those team total overs, I had a big one with Denver a couple weeks back. I loaded up. It jumped off the page on me, right? Team total over. They scored 21 points in the first half. Their game total was like 19.5. And as you know, I have no problem with cashing my ticket and going to watch a movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes sense to go with Baltimore in the first quarter, because that's when they're coming out the strongest, to try to put that game away early. All right, so we go to the second Saturday game, which you also said you have something on with Cincinnati.
It's the same thing. But again, Cincinnati and Tampa Bay, they've been giving me a lot of money lately, as you know. Cincinnati was out of it, right? Like week 3, 4, they were out of it.
Yeah, before
they're still in it. So same thing. It's just my notes. It says Q1 Cincinnati team total over. So I'm betting these teams early, because and again, it's, you guys know, it's a different way to bet that first quarter, because it's like been a 6 furlong race in the horses, or maybe it's a quarter horse race. Actually, it's like a quarter horse race. It's if you, first of all, you bet it ahead of time. You don't know if you're going to win the toss. Then you win the toss, and they take the ball. Or they win the toss and they defer. So it really is, when you bet the quarter 1 before the game starts, there's some trippy things. But today, I'm at a friend's house. They flew in ribs from Kansas City for New Year's Day. Nice. Right? So I'm good with that. And he says to me, I guess you're going to lose. I said, well, the only way I'm going to win is 4 things have to happen, and boom, 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 boom. All 4 of them happened. And he goes, you need to wipe your mouth. I was eating ribs at Kansas City all over my face, and I wasn't about to wipe my face anytime soon.
No, I hear that's a much tighter line too in that game. It's making it a much more competitive game anyway. So Cincinnati on the road favored at 1.5 points. Pittsburgh doesn't have much to play for. There's an outside chance that they could maybe take the division if the Ravens were to lose their Browns, but it's just a very unlikely scenario with a 48 over under in that game. So Chaz like in the first quarter for that matchup. That game, I do have props that I like quite a bit though. So I have Jaylen Warren here. I got a same game parlay I think you could do on Jaylen Warren. So you got 38.5 rushing yards and 21.5 receiving yards. And he's been over that the last 4 weeks in a row. Warren's been leading the backfield now. They've switched things over from Najee Harris over to Warren. He's had a 56-38 split in snaps to Harris. Now, yes, Harris has slightly out carried him a little bit, 46-38%, but Warren's reached double-digit carries the last 2 weeks in a row. So with that, Cincinnati allowing 12th most rushing yards per play. Warren's had a 15% target share over the last 4 games. He's had 40-plus receiving yards in the last 2 weeks. And it's another game where I think they're going to utilize him. It could be a higher scoring game because Cincinnati's been putting up points and it's a weak defense. So I think you could do a single game parlay on Jaylen Warren over his rushing and his receiving prop. The other one that I have in this matchup is Jamar Chase, 93.5 receiving yards. I mean, Joe Burrow's already come out and said, we're making sure he's getting the triple crown. He's been phenomenal all season long. Pittsburgh can't cover him. The last time he played him, he went over 100 yards. So I love that. He's been over that 93.5 mark the last 4 games in a row. Without Chase Brown, it's completely dependent on Joe Burrow throwing the ball to Chase, throwing the ball to T. Higgins. So I do like this quite a bit. And the Steelers have not been great in the secondary, allowing 13th most passing yards per play in this one. So there's parlays and player props I like in that game. All right, so my first Sunday game I want to talk.
Let me ask you guys a question because I don't know your world as much as you know your world, but in this final week, things that happen early impact things that happen late. So Saturday, things happen, change what happened Sunday, and early games on Sunday change, right? So in other words, you could wake up Sunday morning as an NFL player, you got a shot for the playoffs. By the time you get to the field, you're out of it, right? How do you guys handle that with fantasy? Do you change last minute or do you stick with your guns? How does it work?
Well, look, we spend all week long rummaging through the data like you do, come out with rankings, and then we usually stick with those rankings. That's why we do rankings in the first place, to let you know who it is you value more over the other player, ultimately speaking. And a week like this, it gets a little crazy because you kind of have to infer what you think players are going to want to do. But in a case like Jamar Chase, the Cincinnati Bengals have everything to play for. He's been phenomenal all season. He's got a contract coming up for next season. So it makes all the sense in the world to go with a player like that. Same thing with Jaylen Warren. He wants to prove that he could be the guy next year because Najee Harris could be moving on. So you got to look at some of those elements as well. But Chaz, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
I gotta say the other thing, Chaz, I think to look for is like Dan talked about is just the news. You know, you see what guys are practicing. The cool about football is guys typically have to get reps to play. So a guy's not going to essentially wake up Sunday morning and not play. If they haven't practiced all week, if they haven't been part of the game plan, they're not going to be out there. So even guys who have nothing quote unquote to play for will still play, or vice versa, because that's how it's set up. They're not going to have you guys just roll out there and have the third string quarterback.
No, but the bottom line is if you think you got a shot when you wake up and by the time you get the kickoff, you're eliminated, it's got to impact you emotionally.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, 100%. Chaz, the other game I want to talk to you about is Carolina and Atlanta, because I got a couple props in this one, but I'm curious, is that one of the 7 games that you had?
Yeah, and I keep it simple. I wrote NOPE, N-O-P-E. I said, you know what? Would I bet my own money on this game if it wasn't my money? Well, this is actually my money, so that's a legitimate question, but nope. I don't want nothing to do with it, but talk to me.
Well, here's what I got. Look, the Falcons have, again, it's an outside shot because it's very, very slim odds that you're going to see Tampa Bay lose to the Saints. But if they were, if the Saints were to pull off a miracle, the Falcons can still get into the playoffs by winning the division, by winning this game. So they're going to go all out. So I like Michael Penix a lot. First of all, he's gone over his passing prop, and this week it's 207.5 yards the last 2 weeks in a row. The Falcons, They have the Carolina Panthers have given up the 5th most passing yards per play this upcoming week. They want to get the rookie more reps. They want to continue to be aggressive down the field. I think we'll see him be a little more efficient in this matchup than he was last week. So I do like Michael Penix over 207.5 passing yards. I also like on the flip side of that, on the Carolina side, Adam Thielen sitting at 60.5 receiving yards. I mean, he's coming off a 100-yard performance. He's back to being Bryce Young's favorite target. It's likely a negative game script again for Carolina here against Atlanta. So a lot of throws coming in the second half. And the thing I like the most about Adam Thielen is that he's projected to primarily see D. Alford on the other side for most of the games. And that is a matchup he should be able to take huge advantage of. So I like the over on Adam Thielen at 60.5 receiving yards.
That's a great point, because that's a situation where both of those games are 10 o'clock, right? So Tampa Bay wins.
West Coast people out there.
To Atlanta. But don't tell me a start in the NFL doesn't mean something to that kid from Washington. He's going to play hard. He'll play to the whistle blows. And so anything you got that has him in it, you got to feel good about.
Yeah, I like that too. Hey, how about Washington and Dallas? Because I actually don't have any props in this game, so I'm curious if you have anything in this one.
No, threw it out. I got Baltimore, right? Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Denver, Miami, Tampa Bay, and Atlanta. Those are the 7 teams. Because really, I'm not. It's my money, guys. I'm betting my money. I'm not going to bet it on two teams that are eliminated, not knowing. I have no imagine what that. Coaches go right, players go. This team may never. 60 guys played together for a year. They were brothers, right? And then 30 of them are gone the next year. So I'm sticking with teams where they have a reason to play. Because again, I'm looking for. I'm not this week for me. It's just don't do anything stupid with my wagering. You know, I if I don't bet a bowl game, it's very unusual. But I'll bet small amounts. But I'm betting it's football. I know it's going to be over soon. I actually, just as you know, we do every year our sports betting weekly AFC NFC Getaway weekend. It's a Betaway weekend actually, and I just booked the tickets. I got a round trip from Vegas to San Diego for $69.
Oh, sweet.
So if you are in Vegas on the weekend of the 23rd through the 27th, hit me up. We'll get together.
Yeah, I think my wife might divorce me if I'd up and leave without her. But getting back to this, though, just to run through the numbers, because I forgot. So the Falcons are 8-point favorites of the Panthers, an over-under of 48. Commanders, kind of interesting on this one, because they're 5-point favorites against Dallas. They could potentially jostle some seeding there with Green Bay, but not much to play for. I know they said they're going to play Jaden Daniels, but I'd be really curious because, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, if anybody wants to chime in here, but I feel like if Jaden Daniels even looks funny, they're going to take him out of this ball game. So it's a little topsy-turvy to me. I don't know. Adam, would you take any action there on that game with that idea?
It's interesting because the matchup differential you're getting if they win, if I'm Washington, I really want to win this game because this is the difference between going into Philadelphia and playing the Rams. That's a pretty big gap. If I'm Green Bay, if I'm Washington, I want to win, very much so. So that's something I'm going to keep in mind for these games.
I like that.
That's so important. He's absolutely right. Think about that. The Rams don't scare me. The Philly, if Jalen Hurts is fine, scares me a little.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point, especially if they can jostle that seeding away. It depends. I know the Packers are going to come out. We'll talk about that game actually right now, Chicago and Green Bay. I know the Packers are probably looking at the same type of deal. They should be able to take care of business Chicago, which means Commanders, even if they win, they won't be able to move up. But those games are happening at the same time. They're not going to know that. So they're going to be playing to win for that. So the Chicago-Green Bay game, I just had it here. Here we go. So we got 10-point favors for the Green Bay Packers in Green Bay and over under of 41 because nobody believes Chicago has the ability to put up points anymore, apparently. And really after that Seattle game, I don't know how you would. so it's hard to argue with. Chaz, you got anything in this one?
No, but I want to say in public that I feel so bad for that quarterback. I really do, because it seems like he's a really pretty good quarterback, but the Bears just aren't a very good organization right now.
No, they're not. And this is something we're going to have to table for the offseason discussion, guys, especially with Adam and Chris in the dynasty section and everything like that. But if I hear one more person tell me that the Bears definitively made a mistake by drafting Caleb Williams over Jaden Daniels, I'm going to scream because they're not taking context into consideration. But something
I saw that guy live. Okay, I saw that guy live. He's an incredible football player. They just are very, very bad at what they do, which is trying to be a football team.
Yeah, it's bad organization from top to bottom. I do have on the Bears side a player prop for this one, though. So Keenan Allen, 55.5 receiving yards over that the last two of the last 3 games. And even last week with the whole dud against Seattle, he still had 8 targets in that game. He had double-digit targets the previous 2 games before that. He's projected to get Javon Bullard, which is, I'm sure our resident Packers fan, Chase, would tell you, that's the matchup you want as a wide receiver right now. So, yeah, I'm taking Keenan Allen over 55.5 receiving yards this upcoming week. Chase, are you good? I'm getting Chaz and Chase and it's screwing me all up. Chase, are you going to put any action on your Packers there at a 10-point favorites at home with seeding on the line?
With seeding on the line, I mean, I'm willing to take them straight up. I don't know if I'm willing to take them at a 10-point favorite or not.
That's brilliant because that's what people say. Well, I don't know. Just bet them. Don't worry about the line. If you can't afford to throw 500 down to win 100, okay? Then you parlay them with somebody else who should not lose by 7 points. And I'm telling you that the money line stuff, you got to get over the fact that a 14 parlay plays plus 240 because plus 240 is plus 240. I don't care what you're doing. I bought Bitcoin. I got plus 240. I got, I bought IBM. I got plus 240. Plus 240 is plus 240.
Yeah, and you just throw in that parlay and away you go. That's why we love parlays so much on the show, especially when we're talking to Chaz there. So next up, I want to get into the Houston Texans and the Tennessee Titans game. And this one's basically a pick 'em. The Texans on the road favored by 1 point. The over-under's 38. The Texans truly have nothing to play for. They cannot go up in seeding even if they win this game. Tennessee is just playing for pride, playing, one last time to dig it at the division. And I'm going to, Chris, I want to have you help me out with this one before I kick it over to Chaz to see what he has on this game. It's very curious to me because Houston's in this diabolical situation, I think, where they could really use a week off because they've been so banged up they haven't been able to keep their team healthy. But on the flip side, they've been playing really bad football as of late and may want to try to take the opportunity to get some momentum going into the postseason. So do you think we're going to see a full shot out of Houston? Because if we do, it's hard for me not to take them at -1 to basically win this game.
I'm not sure what you mean by a full shot, Dan. I mean, we've seen this team is basically playing backups at a lot of their key positions right now. So I don't know how deep they can go. Maybe not playing C.J. Stroud, what you're considering.
Yeah, like playing C.J. Stroud, playing Joe Mixon, playing Nico Collins. Like, are they going to play those guys, you think, the full game?
I think that they will. I mean, to your point, I think they have to get these guys in a rhythm. I think my only caution why I'm not 100%, yes, they'll definitely play him is if C.J. Stroud goes out there and starts getting smacked around left and right and killed, I don't know if they're not going to pull him because, they want to save him for the playoffs. But I think more than likely, barring that, this team's if they're going to have him start and they're going to play him and have to play to win. I see that Nico Collins is still kind of getting his legs back. They put out a poor performance last week. They do need to kind of get back on track offensively in a lot of different ways. Joe Mixon is the guy that I wouldn't feel confident necessarily because I think running back's the position that you can kind of see those guys get eased in here or there where they can easily go to Getaway, for example, to get back in a passing attack and kind of check the ball down to him. So Mixon is the guy I wouldn't necessarily play for fantasy-wise, but overall, for talking about the 1.5, I think Houston is the bet to take in that game.
Chaz, do you have anything in that matchup?
Yeah, one of the things when I talk to people about handicapping is don't let the math or the data mess with you. Use words. Just write words down. And early in the season, I wrote 2 words. I wrote Tennessee sucks. And so I've been betting based on those words. Do you know what their against the spread number is this year?
You tell me.
2-14. It's just fucking terrible. Can I say that on the air? I'm sorry. But I mean,
get here.
They suck in so many different ways. Here's the problem. Now it comes to, you're absolutely right. Chris mentioned great points. It's week 18. But here's the thing. If you sucked for the entire season, I don't think anything that the other team has to do with it is going to change you from sucking. So I'm just always going to bet against Tennessee.
And to that point, Chase, Dan, there's talk about them playing both quarterbacks. I've never seen that work even in college. I think that's the thing that's going to be, blow up in their faces. So I definitely like Houston in that game.
Brian Callahan's just like, you're both going to be gone next year, so both get hurt. I don't even care.
I understand. I have a really rudimentary aspect of data science, which is I isolate data points, and then I just count how many data points. Well, it works for football, but it works for horse racing, and I'm looking at both of these things. And boy, this Tennessee team, it just keep bet against them. When you get a team that you can get bet against in the first quarter, first half, second half in the game, then all of a sudden you're winning 4 times. So they play, 17 games, and you can win 90 bets in a season on one team just by betting against them. Because it really isn't always betting the team you like. It's betting the team that sucks too, or betting against them.
With all that, I think I've been convinced that I'm definitely taking Houston at -1 in this matchup. I love it. I love it, guys. All right, so the next game I want to talk about, we're staying in the South. It's Jacksonville and the Colts. So for this game, right now, the Colts are favored at -4.5, despite the fact we're not entirely sure which of the quarterbacks it's going to be, whether it's Anthony Richardson, who's dealing with an injury, or Joe Flacco coming in for another start. The over-under is 45. I know Chaz is going to use the logic of Tennessee. I know Jacksonville sucks. But I just can't get what happened last week out of my head completely watching the Giants put up over 40 points against that Colts team, because that was just mind-blowing. I do have a player prop, though. So I got Brian Thomas, 82.5 receiving yards. He's been over that 4 games in a row. The Colts are allowing the 3rd most yards passing per play and the 12th most yards to wide receivers. And Brian Thomas has just been on a tear and really leading the way. And I think he'll put a final stamp there on his rookie year. So I do like him over the 82.5 receiving yards mark. Chaz, are you seeing anything in this game?
No, but 84, right? That's not happening in one play. Sometimes you guys hit bets where, it's 27.5 and the guy gets 30 on the first time.
Some of us have to work for it, Chaz. All right? Some of us have to work for it.
No, I'm just saying, but if you look at how many points they give up, it's a lot of points.
I don't know. Adam's probably wants to bet the Jacksonville Jaguars because the Colts definitely lose. That's probably what he wants to do. Please, Jaguars, beat the Colts for a better draft pick. I don't know. You think they're going to cover against Jacksonville? That has always been your Achilles heel even when you're good.
This is true. My one thought is, man, if for the longest time, this regime has been very, I mean, by regime, I mean the Ballard era more than the Steichen era. It's been very, when the chips are down and it's all on the line, they have faltered every single time. There's the Houston game last year. There's this past week. There's what was it? New England a couple years ago. When there's no pressure, I think that they can cover with no pressure. If they needed to win this game to make it the playoffs, had they beaten the Giants, this would be a trap game. I would have been more worried about this game in that scenario than them being out of the playoffs.
That's a Colts fan who knows. That's a Colts fan who knows.
Well, I mean, in my data, there's these very high numbers on the side of the equation where how many points have they given up, and it's a lot of numbers every single week for a lot of weeks. It's hard to win a lot. It's hard to win a lot of games in any sport if you give up a lot of runs, right?
Well, here's a game that is going to be really hard, I think, to really pin down a confident bet unless you can find a little prop somewhere. I don't have any props in this one that I felt confident about. That was the Buffalo Bills taking on New England Patriots. The Bills are favored at 3 points. It's in New England. They're saying they're going to start with Josh Allen. I would be flabbergasted if he actually played the entire game.
He's not,
because it's
they already say he's not. He's just starting just to get the record.
Yeah. So he's not going to play the whole game. Not that it necessarily matters because the Patriots are that bad. So that's also part of this conversation. They're hoping Drake May is going to start this Sunday. It's not a given, although he was limited in practice. So that's something you'd have to watch in this one too. I will say this. If Drake May doesn't practice tomorrow, I probably go ahead and get the 3 on Buffalo while you still can, because that number will change if they find out Drake. It's going to be Jacoby Brissett over Drake May. But I do wonder, Chaz, if there's anything you got on this game.
No, but Buffalo has won me so much money during this streak because, as you know, he just does stuff that just isn't physically. Him and Mahomes, right? Mahomes does it a little different than he does, but he does it the same way. How did he do that? That's not by that snow game. I mean, I'm sitting in a sushi bar, and I had 4 straight weeks where the Monday night game was the 5th or 4th game of a round robin. That means I'm hitting every 2-teamer, I'm hitting every 3-teamer, I'm hitting every 4-teamer, and I'm hitting a 5-teamer. And he throws for a touchdown pass, he runs for a touchdown pass, and he catches the touchdown pass. It's hard not to see if he's on the field. And that would be maybe a first quarter lean, but that's not on my things to do this week. I'm taking my money this week. I'm going to take it out of the market. I'm going to sit and rest a little bit, and I'm going to get aggressive because we got 3 weeks to the AFC NFC championships, and I'm going to be in Vegas for them. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't blame you one bit on that one. It's just funny. Yeah, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, they do it in different ways, but for fantasy owners, Josh Allen's a hell of a lot better. I'm just saying. Patrick Mahomes has been a mind-boggling dud, especially with his draft capital has been. Let's move on to the Giants and Eagles. So here's a wild one. We know the Eagles aren't playing anybody. Not even going to let Saquon Barkley go get the record, which I hope that they actually ran it by him and he signed off on it yeah, I'm okay with not getting it. We have seen Saquon earlier in the season take himself out and say I'm okay. I don't need to get any more. He did it against the Giants then, actually. So maybe he was on board with this. But I'm going to lose my freaking mind if I find out that the Eagles just sat him when the chance to go to get the record over 100 yards against the Giants.
So that's news to me. That's news to me because the last news I heard is they hadn't decided yet.
That came out this afternoon. So this afternoon, they came out and said Saquon is, in fact, going to rest along with Jalen Hurts, who's still technically in concussion protocol to begin with and everything else. So the lines right now on this game, and I'm jumping all over the place here. We got the Giants. So it's the Eagles are still favored, even with Kenny Pickett, who's also banged up, or Tanner McKee at quarterback, and Kenneth Gainwell at -2.5 here in Philly. Anything standing out to you in a matchup like this?
No, I mean, I'm thinking he must be a really decent human being. Because if my boss let me go and I had a chance to screw with him and create a record in front of his face, I would do it every single time. I've never said I'm a proud man. I'm just who I am.
Yeah, it's absolutely mind-boggling to me. I mean, Chris, will you take that action there? Eagles -2.5 of the Giants. Do you think the Giants cover because they're not going to play anybody on the Philadelphia side?
I mean, I think they're not going to play any guy on the Philadelphia side, but that's the report coming out. The report was they did go by the players and the team and ask them specifically if they wanted to go for the record and that they were going to go by what they said. So obviously, it seems that Saquon was okay not playing. I don't think necessarily I want to touch this game. I'm going to take Chaz's advice on this game. This is a game where I think the Eagles can score points, but I don't want to touch this game. I think there's too many variables up for play, especially the Giants, where they could just screw themselves with the Giants.
One of your friends, the buddies you bet with, and you have to say, I bet the Giants, and you have to accept that. I'm not, there's a lot of things I'll admit to, but that's not one of them.
Well, and Chris, the point that you make about the variables in this game is why I don't have any props for you in this game. But I do have a prop in this next matchup. So we got the Saints and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is another big line. The Bucs are favored at 13.5. And again, the Bucs do have something to play for. The over-under sitting at 43.5. They win the division. It's that simple, regardless of what happens in the Atlanta game. So they're going to have reason to play. And I really love the idea of Bucky Irving this week going over 85.5 rushing yards. I mean, remember, he's been over that 2 of the last 3 in particular. You're going to probably, if this plays out like it should, and I know division games can get weird sometimes, but if it plays out like it should, he should be able to run the ball out there in the second half. He's been playing double the snaps of Rashad White as of late, too. It's not even barely a committee anymore. And the Saints, of course, are allowed the 6th most rushing yards to the running backs and the 2nd most rushing yards per play. So Bucky Irving over 85.5 rushing yards. I kind of like that in this one. Chaz, when you see a big line like this, especially when one team has something on the line, but it's a divisional opponent who has a chance to play spoiler, is there anything sticking out to you in that?
I'm treating the same as I am the Ravens and the Bengals game, which is bet team quarter one and then bet their team totals. Don't worry about who wins. Just worry about if they get their touchdowns. I think they're going to score. I'm a big Baker Mayfield fan. I've got a buddy that knows a guy that was on. So my son's friend was the quarterback at Stanford. He played with Hooper, and Hooper was with Cleveland when he was with Cleveland. And they sent me a video from these guys playing bear pong in the backyard of Hooper's house, I think it was. And it was like, these are just kids. These are just kids, you know. He's matured so much as a football player. Remember, he was pretty special in college. He wasn't just good. He was special. I mean, he won games that people shouldn't have won in college. But I'm a big fan. I don't know how far they're going to go in the end. I don't think I'm going to be betting. I don't think they're going to be in the game on the 26th in January. I'm in Vegas. I don't think they're going to be there, but I like them this week.
Yeah, I mean, Chaz, Chase, you're a big Baker Mayfield fan too. You going to take the Bucs there at 13.5?
13.5. Honestly, I might be persuaded to sprinkle a little on that just because New Orleans has been so terrible lately. And like I said, I think Baker's going to be flinging that ball all over the field. I think they're going to pull out all the stops. I think they want to leave no doubt that they belong in the playoffs and take that division. Yeah, I mean, I could see myself putting something on them even at 13.5. That's a little bigger spread than I normally would, feel comfortable.
But really, you made a good point. How many points could the Saints score? Really, honestly.
Well, here's what I'll throw out here, because the Saints earlier were trying to make it seem like that maybe they will have Derek Carr and Chris Olave and have them play in this week's game. Now, having said that, Derek Carr did not practice today. I don't know why he would bother. Chris Olave is another one. I don't know why he would bother, but he did practice in full, although he's been practicing in full the last couple of weeks. So again, situations where I don't know why they would bother to actually play these players. I don't think these players should actually want to play in these games with their injuries, especially Chris Olave with the concussion issues that he has. But if it is Spencer Rattler, then yeah, I don't know if they can score more than 10 points right now against Tampa Bay, quite frankly. And they have Kendrick Miller who's going to be out. They're down to nothing. They're down to dust. So this is actually one of those times, Chase, I'm with you. I don't usually like to bet these big lines, especially in divisional games in the NFL, but I feel pretty good about this one being wrapped up a 34-10 type of ball game for the Buccaneers against the Saints in this one. So we got the 4:00 hour finally. So we got Kansas City and Denver, and another situation where Kansas City's got nothing to play for. Denver has everything to play for. And this line reflects that dramatically, because Denver is a 10.5 point favorite in Denver with a 39.5 over under. And Chaz, before I get to you, I just want to say I'm taking Kansas City. Carson Wentz is not a bum. I don't think the Chiefs, even if they don't play, a lot of their key guys are just going to roll over. And some of their key guys are backed up by veterans who can play a little bit. Like I think DeAndre Hopkins will play a little bit in this game. I think they still want to play Hollywood Brown and get him some reps in this game. Yes, you won't see Chris Jones. You won't see Travis Kelce. You won't see Patrick Mahomes. You probably won't see Isaiah Pacheco. But I don't think Denver's good enough to beat Kansas City, even with their backups, by 10.5 points. I don't. So I actually like Kansas City here as a little underdog special there for you. I don't know, Chaz, what do you think?
Well, I don't even touch the line of a Chiefs game until I know what Taylor Swift is doing. Is she going to be there? Is she traveling? She just came off that world tour. She doesn't travel much. But this is one of my plays. I do have Denver's team total over. Here's what I think. I think I've watched a lot of football this year, and I think he's a very good quarterback. And I think that this coach, I'm not a big fan, but he's had some success. But this kid is just a good quarterback. And so I think I'm going to get my points. And I think that they'll play to the end. Remember, what good is having any over if the team in the second half just shuts it down? I don't see this happening with this game.
Denver's over a team total, by the way, 25.5 on DraftKings Sportsbook, in case you were wondering. Okay, so the Chargers and the Raiders in our divisional game. This is another one. So this I'm pulling back from my 49er roots. Okay. because the Chargers don't really technically have anything to play for. I mean, maybe seeding a little bit, jostling up in the air, but they're in the playoffs, and you're playing against the Raiders who are terrible. And this is a team in the Chargers that they've been a little bit banged up. But I know Jim Harbaugh. I know his mindset, and his mindset is we're going in. It's very similar to Dan Campbell. We're going in full tilt to win this game because I want everybody on their A game heading into the postseason. So I think you're going to see all these Chargers play. Now, do they play the whole game? That's going to depend on how the game goes to start the week. But I do think here we got I had just had it. So the line here was going to be a little bit tighter than you would typically expect because of the expectations the Chargers don't have to do much. So they're only favored by 5 points in this game. I like that bet because I do, like I said, going back to my 49er roots, I know what Jim Harbaugh wants to do. They're not going to look at this as like a get everybody healthy type of game. They're going to go get it. So I do like the Chargers covering 5 points here. I don't know if anything stuck out to you in this matchup, Chaz.
Yeah, the fact that the Chargers are really good on the defensive side of the ball, and the Raiders suck. So I would go with the team total under for the Raiders here.
I mean, does that track with you there down there, Chase? Like you think that's a possibility? You think I'm off there on Jim Harbaugh?
No, I mean he's not Dan Campbell nuts in terms of how aggressive he wants to be or how true to the game he wants to be. But who the hell is, right? But no, he's going to play his guys. He's going to go for it. They're going to try to win this game, period. And I mean, yeah, they need to keep the ship rolling. They need to keep things going. And I can see that. Yeah. And like Chaz says, Los Angeles is just, they're damn good on the defensive side of the football. I know that Aiden O'Connell, hey, they're going to try and give him a look. They might try and loosen some things up, see what they have in him, maybe make a final decision on him for next year. But I like the Chargers to be able to shut the Raiders down and win this game, regardless of how much their starters truly play.
Yeah, I hear you. We got Seattle and the Rams. Seattle's favored here by 6.5 points, and over/under set at 38.5. And just while we were on the show, the announcement officially came in that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be starting for the Rams this upcoming week. Again, that's a team also trying to take advantage of the fact that they can't really move anywhere, so they're going to try to get healthy this week. I do like Seattle at that line then at 6.5. Seattle has to get things right for next year. And I have a good player prop, I think, for you at JSN going over 73.5 receiving yards. He's been over that 7 of the last 8. I mean, he's been super consistent since that Week 10 bye. He's been the top target of the team since the Week 10 bye. And the Rams have been bad even with their starters on, allowing the 10th most passing yards per play this season. So I do think JSN, one of my lock 'em in player props of the week there, over at 73.5 receiving yards. Chaz, anything in this game you got going on?
Yeah, you know what? It's not one of my key plays, but when I looked at the data, all I saw was like single digits. So you got columns, right? You got a column for the first quarter, you got a column for the first half, you got a column for and it's just single digits, all single digits for both teams. So I'm going with the under.
Chris, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, this is not a game I'm all that excited about, Dan. I go with Chad with the under. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game overall. This is a game that I'm not just like super excited for, just to bet on either way.
No, this is the kind of game. If it was the only game that was on TV at Spectrum, I would go down and blow up the Spectrum place. I mean, I would piss me off. Of course, I don't have that because I've got the box that gets me all the games. But it really is. And that's a problem. Every week you get all the games, but when you have games where there's teams that just it's the end of the season, it's like you don't wonder they should. In the spring football they got that challenge where you could challenge anything, which is the greatest challenge in the history of challenges. You can challenge anything. You can challenge anything. You just throw the flag out. You get one of them a game. Why every other sport doesn't have it, I don't understand. But even this game, some of these games shouldn't be played. They should just say, hey, you know what? We're going to postpone this game.
Throw the challenge before the first play and just
you get paid. No, it doesn't impact your money. You get paid. But you know what? We'll give the fans back their money. Everybody wins because there's going to be like half of these games this weekend are going to be ugly.
Well, yeah, and another one too is the Dolphins and the Jets. And I know there's this ridiculous outside shot that the Dolphins could somehow get in if this, that, and the third all happens and goes their way, which isn't going to happen. But again, we kind of talked about it earlier, guys. Like Tyler Huntley is going to be probably at least the starting quarterback for this upcoming week. I mean, maybe if Tua can pull through, but that doesn't seem to be likely at this station. The Dolphins are favored at -1. It's basically a pick 'em here. It's in New York, and it's a 39 over under. It's going to be cold on Sunday. Now I know Tua is not playing, but the Dolphins in general don't like the cold. It's not just a Tua thing. It's a whole organizational thing. The only prop I have in this game though is that Aaron Rodgers does get his 500th to Devontae Adams. So I do have Devontae Adams on an anytime touchdown. That's a narrative I do buy. They have that opportunity that they're going to make that happen. So just a kind of a narrative player prop, not something I typically do, but in this situation, I do kind of buy it. Chaz, anything sticking out to you in this game? Probably not, because both these teams have been bad.
Well, do remember, I grew up in New Haven, so the Jets, the Giants, the Patriots, those worlds were the worlds I was in. And the one thing that you notice is the difference between the Jets in Miami and the Jets when they played in New Jersey. I mean, it was a big difference. But in this game, I actually do have a play, and it's on the second half. It's with Miami, mostly because they just don't give up any points in the second half. And by the second half, the Jets are they're cleaning out their lockers and stuff. So
they're cleaning out their lockers before the game even starts.
Technically, I don't think you can because you've got your cup on. You got to take your cup off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, not a game I really love either way on the action. And then we got the 49ers Cardinals game, another game.
I will interject that, yes, many times Vicky has said to me, so you're betting the second half of a Week 18 game and you don't think you need help?
Dan, can I just say something real quick?
Sure.
Just before we move on from the awesome Aaron Rodgers and Jets experience, I just wanted to point out that Drew locked up with the Giants and the Jets. Drew Lock has thrown 4 touchdown passes twice since the last time that Aaron Rodgers has in the game. Twice. It's been 4 years.
Think about that. That's so sick.
You can thank the Colts for that one. Sorry, Adam. Yeah, it's been a bad downfall. And the fact that there are people who are still talking about whether or not Aaron Rodgers will be back next year just makes the whole thing a joke to me. But anyway, so we go on to San Francisco and the Cardinals, 2 teams. Again, both teams are out of the playoffs. In fact, if the teams were smart, they're not going to do this, but the teams are smart. They'd be playing to lose to try to just get better draft capital in this one. Cardinals are favored at -4. The over-under is at 42.5. The official announcement has come down. It will be Josh Dobbs starting at quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers this week. It will not be Brock Purdy, who hurt his elbow in the Monday night game. So you're down to Josh Dobbs. You do still have Debo and Juwan and George Kittle and Isaac Guerendo's out there. It still remains to be seen. I'm going to assume here, from what I understand, I don't know if there's a contract incentive or what. It does sound like Nick Bosa, some of the other defensive starters are going to play, although I'm a little surprised by that, to be honest with you, especially with their injury risk has been this season. But anyway, I digress. So, Chaz, when you're looking at a game like this, the starting quarterback's out. We know he's out for sure. And it's a team that's been reeling losses over the past month. Cardinals, technically speaking, are going to be playing all of their starters and actually are more healthy in this game. So at that -4 or whatever you got in this game, does anything there kind of tilt when you're dealing with that quarterback situation?
Well, let me ask you a question. As a fan of a team that has been in the NFC Championship game for 4 straight years and now is not in the playoffs, are you okay? Is everything okay with you? Or?
No, everything is not okay. It's been a very, very, very steep climb.
And I'm a big believer that our country's focus on mental health is not efficient. So if you need anything, you give me a call. But otherwise, here's what I'm going to say to you. I'm going to say that you guys do this fantasy where it's year round, right? They showed me today. The Arizona State kid, Scubido or whatever his name is, he's got that cute name. Who's the Arizona State kid? The
Scatabo?
The great running back.
Scatabo.
Yeah.
What's his name?
The running back, Scatabo.
Scatabo. Think about it, right? That sounds like a New Orleans hit. Scatabo. You got to get him on your team. As soon as you can draft this kid, draft him. Because he's just an amazing.
The problem, Chad, he's gonna go too high. The 49ers only take running backs in like the 4th round.
No. The reason I'm transitioning into this is because the only guy that did ever what he did was McCaffrey.
Yeah.
If the only kid that ever did what you did is McCaffrey, you're pretty damn good. And look at Bowers. What Bowers did, right, was amazing. And he's doing it now in the NFL, but he's still with the Raiders. If you could do anything with the Raiders, what could you do with somebody that's good? This kid is going to be a good NFL player. And the reason I brought it up is because you mentioned the 49ers, and of course McCaffrey is, he's an incredible football player. But this kid did what he did. Now, McCaffrey did a little bit more, and it was like, so many thousand yards and so many 100 yards and receptions for a running back. But the only other name on the list was Christian McCaffrey. And I don't care what the list is, right? Best draft, fastest, best looking. I don't care what the list is. If you're on a list with Christian McCaffrey, you're okay as a football player.
Dan, you're winning this game, right?
He was amazing today. He was that Scatterboo. He was amazing. He threw the.
I'm at my buddy's house. The guy with the ribs. Did I mention the ribs? They were so good. Oh my God. They were flowing in from Kansas City. They were incredible. He threw a touchdown pass for 42 yards. He had 100 yards rushing. No, he had 100 yards receiving. He had like 150 yards. Then they lost the game. It was heartbreaking.
At one point, he had more yards than Texas did as a team.
Yeah. And he had one play where the guy that hit him had to be a rib eater. He had to be a rib eater. This guy was 300 pounds. And this guy turned around and he went backwards and he started doing the when you push the sled in summer, all summer as a football player, you push the sled, and he pushed the sled and he went through this guy that had to be 300 pounds for a first down, and I fell in love with this guy.
Look at that, Chaz giving us a little dynasty preview. What were you gonna say, Chris?
I said, you realize the 49ers are going to win this game, right, Dan?
Don't even put that in the universe. No, we need a top 10 pick. You shut your mouth. We're losing this game against the Arizona Cardinals, okay?
We know Shanahan's going to coach his ass off like he did last week. It's a given.
Not all the stops. It's a must-have.
Thankfully, we've found the antithesis of Shanahan, and that is Nick Sorensen, who can't come up and call a defense to save his life. So hopefully they'll manage itself out a little bit. All right, so speaking of the Detroit, and this is the only game, I shouldn't say the only game, but this is the biggest game of the week. This is the one game we look at and say we should have an actual good NFL game. It's on Sunday night. You got the Minnesota Vikings taking on the Detroit Lions. I actually have 3 player props in this game. The Lions are favored at -2.5. And the over-under is at 56.5. And I got another underdog special for you. I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to win this game just because I think Detroit's defense is too awful to actually pull this one off. I'll get to Chaz about the game in a little bit, but let me get to the player props. So I got Sam Darnold going over 280.5 passing yards. He was throwing the ball 35 plus times. It's a big boost in what we've seen in his average throughout the regular season. The last 3 weeks in a row, had 377 yards last week. Detroit, 323, 363, 400 passing yards. The last 3 weeks in a row, they got a practice squad secondary out there. It's almost as bad as the Colts. So I'm taking Sam Darnold to go over 280.5 passing yards. And if you're going to do that, you might as well parlay it up with Justin Jefferson going over his receiving yards prop at 86.5, which is a little bit low. I was a little bit surprised by this. He's been over that 5 of the last 6. Detroit, again, I can go into the whole thing, just letting receivers run wild on him this upcoming week. And we do expect this to be a high-scoring game. I don't think the line's wrong when it says 56.5 over under. I think points are going to be had. So I want to flip to the other side and go Amon-Ra St. Brown. 68.5 receiving yards over that 2 of the last 3. He's had a 27% target share, went for 112 yards the last time he played Minnesota. And they've allowed the second most receiving yards to the wide receivers, second to only Detroit. So the wide receivers should have a good game in this one. And I got player props all across the board. Chaz, this has got to be one of the games you got something on.
It's the only game that I highlighted, and I wrote OMG. And I did this one other time. It was the Buffalo game. Remember, it was 40. Buffalo lost by 2 or won by 2.
Buffalo Rams game?
Yeah. When you look at the data for this game, you say, how did they not score 100 points in this game?
Yeah. No, 100%.
So any prop that you got that has the words over in it, I'm on your side, man. Here's what I'm thinking. the second half, Detroit at home is really good. So I'm looking over for the first half. I'll probably over for the quarter too, over for the game, and then in the second half, I'm hopping on the Lions no matter what the score is.
All right. Yeah. They have been a second half team. That's come to play, especially offensively. I don't know. What do you guys think?
And one more thing I got to throw out, because they were the 5th team of a 5-team round robin the other night. And as you know, if you watch the game, and I'm assuming that of anybody in the world, you guys watched the game, right? Right? You thought it was a loser. And then all of a sudden, they're okay, now we got a shot. And then it ended up, they kick another field goal that we're given 4.5 and winning by 6. And then they score a touchdown, and I just sat there, and it didn't matter. They brought in the second-string quarterback after he got hurt, and it didn't matter. It was one of the best victories of my life, because 5-team round robins with 4s, 3s, and 2s pays a lot of money.
Yes, it does. It absolutely does. Yeah. What do you guys think? I mean, the number 1 seeds on the line, the division's on the line. Matchup against Minnesota, Detroit, part 2. The first one was really good. Detroit, of course, winning that one. I don't know, Adam. What do you think? What do you think? Who wins this game here?
I really like to think that this is going to be a nice hurrah for Detroit. Everyone, it feels like they're getting doubted again. Everyone feels like, the Vikings are, almost the better team. And definitely it feels like the energy is on Philadelphia being the best in the conference. It feels like, I think if you're Detroit, if you're Dan Campbell and you're trying to build like the underdog thing, you finally actually can do that again after being like the front runner for 2.5 months, so to speak. So I think Detroit is kind of where they want to be and can, get a big win going into the playoffs and hopefully get a bye.
So Adam likes the Dan Campbell moxie. I want to get everyone's opinion on this one. So Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a tough one, Dan. I think either way, but I'm going to go with the Vikings on this one. I'm going to go with the team that has a better defense, a more healthy defense. I think one of the things they can do is if you can take away some Jared Goff's easy completions, especially his first easy reads, you can make him stand in the pocket a little bit more. This Detroit offensive line, while it's good, hasn't pass protected all that well this entire season. I think the Vikings can steal this game because I think they have the better matchups defensively. And offensively, I think they can attack through the air. We know that Detroit's secondary is banged up. They have no little pass rush, but Aaron Jones is going to be a problem for them too because they have problems with speedy running backs out of the backfield as well.
What do you think? What do you think down there, Chase?
Yeah, I think the Lions are a lot better than the Packers are. I think the Packers keep finding ways to fall way behind the Vikings and then come back and almost beat them. And I don't think that the Lions are going to fall into that same trap. I think that the Lions are actually going to come out, play a full game, start to finish, and not have to play the crazy catch up that Green Bay has played against the Vikings in 2 games. I still like the Lions. I know they're beat up as all hell, but the Lions are one of the few teams in the league that I think, even if their defense can't play for the entire game, they can still score enough points to win a shootout with literally any team in the league right now. So I still like the Lions at home against the Vikings with Dan Campbell egging them on and willing them to victory, even if he makes a couple of stupid 4th down calls, on his own 6-yard line with 13 minutes left in the first quarter or whatever. I still like the Lions at home against the Vikings to bring this one home and actually set themselves up for a run, get themselves a little bit healthy and make a run here in the playoffs.
I have to interject because what he said was right on. But if you look at this team that had nothing to play for, and they gave me a 5-team round robin with 4s, 3s, 2s. I mean, they had nothing to play for, right? And they went in there, and I just don't see them losing this game. But I don't think Minnesota's not going to.
I will say, Chase, either the 49ers fan didn't play for either, but I digress.
but yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not kidding. How did they not score 100 points in this game?
Well, to Chris's point, the 49ers had literally practice squatters on the offensive line. No Christian McCaffrey, no Brandon Ayuk, Debo, who's a bum, and put up 34 points. And with Brock Purdy getting hurt at the very end. I think that's my point here is that, yes, they won that game because they got 2 turnovers and their offense could not be stopped. Minnesota has a legitimate defense. And I know you've been able to throw on them this year, and Detroit's going to move the ball, and I think there's going to be points scored in this game. I'm not saying that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, their offense, the Vikings offense, has been just as good as Detroit's, and you have an actual legitimate NFL defense there on the field. That's going to matter, and it's hard to beat a divisional opponent twice, especially one that's that good. Detroit took the first one. I think Minnesota takes the second one. That's going to do it for the show, though. So, Chaz, I want to give you a big shout out. Your debut on the show for start of 2025. I'm so happy to have you on, and I'm glad that we're going to have you on for the wild card, the divisional round. Hopefully, we'll be able to get you for that championship while you're away at Vegas. We can work that out. We have in the past, and then
because I don't leave till Thursday.
Okay, perfect. Yeah,
and I'm telling you right now, if you want to have a good time, show up in Vegas on Saturday. Don't wait for the two NFC games on Sunday. Saturday is the day we have a good time.
But I want to thank you. We're going to have him on. We're going to be on 9:30 on Wednesday throughout the playoffs, doing DFS and dynasty check-ins and all this betting stuff that we kind of did today. Chaz, what do you got going on right now, man? Where can everybody check you out? What content you want people to check out?
No, right now, there's still, remember they had that horrible thing in New Orleans. So Notre Dame and Georgia are still live, right? And then we have Texas, we have Ohio State, and who's the other team that's made? Penn State. And I've already sold all of their football. So I have a database for all of these teams. All 5 of the teams that are left to have a database. I'm just floating right now. Championshipfootballs.com.
There you go. As for those who don't know, that's where you get all the championship footballs from all of the years. Chaz really has a great thing going there when he has them in.
No, I mean, I get to talk to people that won. Everybody that calls me, their team won because I only sell championship footballs. It's so cool talking to these. I'm talking to Michigan guys that were playing when the Michigan won one of their, how many they won? 8, 12, 14 championships, whatever they won. And the guys were playing with leather helmets. And I remember I was sitting in the gas station, pumping gas, talking to this guy because it rolled over to my cell. And he was telling me his story. He played with a leather helmet. And he was on one of those national championship teams. And I get to sell him football. It made me pretty proud.
That's awesome.
Going way back in the day. All right, so we'll be back again 9:30 next week here on the Fantasy Football Network channel. I'm going to get to you. Hold on, Chase. I'm going to cut it to you. Make sure you're downloading us on Operation Domination Football Podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. That's not going to go away. All right, I just want to give people the schedule in the offseason. We are going to have a little bit of a hiatus between the Super Bowl and free agency. That's the only hiatus we're going to be taking this year. Other than that, we'll be good to go and on this network channel. Make sure you're signing up for our membership here on Fantasy Sports Advice because we got a ton of stuff coming up that's not just football related, not just this show, but on the Fantasy Football Advice or Fantasy Sports, Advice Network with the app coming up. So make sure you're signing up for that and getting a membership in there. And I know we have those jersey leagues and Chase, I know you want to give a shout out.
That's right. All right. So I got to pop one here for the guy that won my Jersey League, the Jersey League that I commissioned, the Christian Watson Jersey League there on Sleeper for Fantasy Football Advice Network, Diamond Dogs and GB Chris 21. Dude had a 9-5 regular season. He was our second highest scoring team. Then he went on and knocked my ass out of the playoffs, even after I put up my highest score of the season in round 1. He then took out Fantasy Football Advice Network's own Captain FFAN in the semis to reach the finals. And when he got there, he left no doubt. He was 0.05 points away from the highest score in the entire league, the entire season. He took that thing by over 70.5 points. Attaboy, GB Chris 21. Good work. You're taking home an autographed Christian Watson jersey. And if anybody else wants to get on that kind of action, next year, sign up for a premium membership over at Fantasy Football Advice Network, and you too can get in on a signed jersey league. We've got all different kinds of leagues. There's IDP leagues, there's kicker premium leagues, there's wide receiver premium leagues like mine was this year. Anything you want to get in on, you can, and you got a shot to not only play against yours truly and other pros, but to take home an autographed jersey and hang it on your wall. So good work. Again, cheers. Slanja, GB Chris 21.
We'll see you guys next week. Hey there. I want to thank you for watching Operation Domination today. And if you're enjoying the show, there are some ways you can help support us. You can go to podchaser.com/Operation Domination and leave us a 5-star review. And you can do this on any podcast platform or on our YouTube page when you go to @FF Advice Network. This completely helps out the show be able to grow, and also leave us comments to let us know how we can curtail the show to you, because you are the most important member of the show. So again, go to podchaser.com/Operation Domination to leave a 5-star review and leave a comment wherever you listen or watch the show, and we'll help better serve you.
Woo!
Yes.